Ram Ram friends, welcome to Kalyani IS Academy. In this lecture we will study basic principles of chemistry. Now start the lecture and understand. See, we have to study basic principles and important principles of chemistry, and I have included these principles in these following topics. The first is what is matter, element and compound, then mixture, then atom, chemical reactions, right? Acids, bases, salts and pH value. Also, on the basis of previous year's questions, I have selected these topics, right? So, simply we can say that these topics are most important. If we would study these topics, then definitely we would have studied the basic principles of chemistry, as well as we would have studied the important topics of chemistry related to MPPSC prelims examination, right? So we will study these topics one by one. In this lecture we will study matter, element and compound, right? So now start the lecture and understand what is matter. See, everything in this universe except energy is known as matter, right? Because the universe is made up of matter or energy, right? So except energy, everything, right, whatever is remaining is known as matter. Or we can say that everything which has definite mass, definite volume, right, occupies space, etc., or whose existence can be realized by the sense organ is known as matter, right? So this is the most important line, right? Because matter can be defined, right, in the following definition. But अगर हम शॉर्ट वर्ड्स में या इन मिनिमम वर्ड में अगर डिफाइन करना चाहें, सो एवरीथिंग इन द यूनिवर्स whose existence can be realized by the sense organs is known as matter. क्योंकि हम wood को, right, या iron को या water को, right, we can see, right, we can touch, right, और we can feel, तो इनका realization जो है possible है, right? तो इसीलिए हम कह सकते हैं कि whose existence can be realized by the sense organs is known as matter. So simply we can say that everything in this universe except energy is known as matter, because the whole universe is made up of matter and energy. Or in other words, we can say that everything in this universe that has definite mass, that has definite volume, that occupies space, that can exert pressure, whose states can be transferred through energy, and whose existence can be realized by the sense organ is known as matter, right? Now we will study classification of matter. See, matter is classified on the basis of two forms, right? The first is physical form and on the basis of chemical form. So simply matter is classified on the basis of two forms. The first is physical classification and second is chemical classification. So first we will study physical classification, after that we will study chemical classification. So the first is physical classification of matter, and this is also known as states of matter. For an example, solid state, liquid state, gaseous state, right? Then Bose-Einstein condensate state and plasma state, right? So let's study the physical classification or states of matter. See, this classification of matter is related to physical state at normal temperature and normal pressure, because if these condition changes, then there may occur other states of matter, right? So this classification, or we can say that the physical classification of matter is related to physical state at a normal temperature and normal pressure. And the states of matter are due to different characteristics of its particles, right? Thus there are three states of matter, right? there are three states of matter. The first is, right, solid, liquid and gas. So solid, liquid and gas are the states of matter on normal conditions, or we can say that at normal temperature and normal pressures, there are three states of matter. The first is solid state, then liquid state, then gaseous state, right? But on specific conditions, there are other two states. The first is Bose-Einstein condensate and plasma states, right? Various MCQs have been asked in the previous year's questions, whether in MPPSC prelims or other exams, right? So we would have to study, right? We have to study the characteristics of these states of matter in depth. So let's study. The first is solid state. See, the state of matter in which the matter has definite shape and definite volume. A definite shape and definite volume, and clear boundaries is known as solid state, right? So the state of matter, clear, the state of matter in which the matter has definite shape and a definite volume and clear boundaries is known as solid state. For an example, stone, iron, copper and woods. Now let's see the general properties of solid. See, general properties of solid. And now you have to keep only one fact in your mind, and every chemical property, every property you would remember easily. How? See, there are three states, which is solid, liquid and gas. And these states are because of the gap between the two particles of matter, right? If there is a less gap, और अगर ये गैप कम होगा तो इनके बीच में लगने वाला, जैसे मैंने कहा कि right, there is a huge gap between the particles of matter, then definitely the force of attraction would be less, right? और अगर ये force of attraction या intramolecular force यदि क्या होगा, less होगा, तो उसकी वजह से ही ना तो definite shape होगा और ना ही definite क्या होगा, volume होगा, right? So if there is a minimum gap between the two particles of a matter, then there would be a high intramolecular force, and which provides the definite shape as well as definite volume. If when the gap increases, तो उससे ही उस matter की जो properties हैं वो क्या होती हैं, changes होती हैं, right? So आपको केवल और केवल one thing you have to remember, that is कि जो solid है, solid में दो particles, right? The gap between two particles in solid state is minimum, or we can say that जो solid state है उसमें particles closer होते हैं, right? The particles of matter are closer together, due to which they have high density, right? और इसी की वजह से जो other characteristics हैं वो यहाँ पर होती हैं, right? So simply we can say that, right, there is a minimum gap between the two particles in solid state. Therefore solids have a fixed shape as well as a fixed volume. Also the space between particles of solid is negligible, therefore there is a high density, right? And the gap between the two particles is minimum, therefore there is a huge force of attraction, or we can say that the intramolecular force is very strong between the particles of solid state or solid matter. Therefore solids cannot be compressed, right? Solid cannot be compressed, right? And solid have fixed shape as well as fixed volume. And the speed and kinetic energy of particles are minimum, because the gap between the two particles is minimum, therefore the speed of the movement of these particles is minimum, and if the speed is minimum, then kinetic energy of the particles is also minimum, right? Next is the liquid state. See, the state of matter which has definite volume but does not have a definite shape is known as liquid state. And when a liquid is kept in a vessel, it takes the shape of that vessel, right? So this is known as solid state, and this is because the gap between the two particles of matter is less than solid but greater than gases, right? Therefore, right, therefore the liquid, right, the liquid has definite, or we can say that the liquid has fixed and definite volume, but the liquid does not have fixed shape, right? Now we will see the general properties of liquids, right? So simply we can say that the gap between the two particles of a liquid state is higher than gas and lower than solids, right? Therefore liquid have a fixed volume but have no fixed shape, right? The intramolecular force of attraction is weaker than the solids but higher than gases, right? Diffusion of solids, liquids and gases is possible in the liquid state. Fourth, liquid are more compressible than the solid, and the speed, right, the speed of molecules at liquid state is higher than the solid. Therefore the speed and as well as the kinetic energy of their particles is more than that of solid but less than that of gases, right? And their hardness is low. The third is gaseous state, right? Gaseous state. See, the state of matter which has neither definite shape nor definite volume is known as gaseous state, because the gap between, right, the gap between the two particles of gases is maximum, right? Therefore the intramolecular force is minimum. Therefore gases have neither a definite shape nor a definite volume, right? When we keep gases in a particular vessel, right, the gases fills up this vessel, right, and the gases fills of this vessel, right? For an example, the first is oxygen, then hydrogen. What are the general properties of gases? What are the general properties of gases? See, we know that the gap between the two particles of gases is maximum. Therefore, there is a minimum intramolecular force, and because of the minimum intramolecular force, right, the gases have maximum momentum as well as maximum kinetic energy, because the particles of gases are free to move from one place to another place. Therefore they have maximum speed, and if they have maximum speed, then definitely they would have maximum kinetic energy, right? So always remember the gap between the two particles of gases is maximum, right? Therefore there is a less intramolecular force, and because of the less intramolecular force, right, the gases have neither fixed shape nor fixed volume, right? Second thing is that the property of high compressibility is found in them, right? तो जो compressibility है वो minimum किस में होती है? Solid में, right? उससे less किस में होती है? लिक्विड में, बट सबसे ज़्यादा जो compressibility होती है वो किस में होती है? गैसेस में होती है, right? There are gases in this room, but I am easily moving from one place to another place. साथ ही साथ इनकी जो हार्डनेस है वो भी क्या होती है? नेग्लिजिबल होती है. साथ ही साथ इनकी डेंसिटी भी क्या होती है? मिनिमम होती है. और इनका एक्सेसिव क्या होता है? डिफ्यूजन होता है, राइट? और दे आर हाईली फ्लूइड, इनमें जो फ्लूइड का कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स है वो सबसे ज़्यादा होता है. एंड आल्सो दे हैव मैक्सिमम मोमेंटम एज वेल एज मैक्सिमम काइनेटिक एनर्जी, राइट? सो the gap between the two particles of gases is maximum. Therefore there is a minimum intramolecular force force between the two particles of gases. Therefore, gases have, right, gases have neither a definite shape nor a definite volume, right? And when we keep gases in a particular vessels, right, the gases fill up this vessel, right, quickly, right? Or we can say that the gases, and because of this there is a high compressibility in gases, right? There is a excessive diffusion which is found in gases. There is a, the hardness is negligible and the density is minimum, and gases are the highly fluid. And most important, the particles of gases have maximum momentum, right? Or we can say that maximum speed, the gases of, right? अब अगर हम यहाँ पर कंपेयर करें सॉलिड से, सो द पार्टिकल्स ऑफ सॉलिड हैव मिनिमम स्पीड एंड मिनिमम काइनेटिक एनर्जी, whereas the gases, the particles of gases have maximum speed as well as maximum kinetic energy, right? So in this way we have studied the solid state, liquid state and gaseous state, and these states are under normal conditions. So under normal conditions there are three states: solid, liquid and gaseous. But under certain conditions matter is also known to have two other states. The first is plasma state and second is Bose-Einstein condensate, right? Now fourth is plasma state. What is plasma state? See, plasma, right, the state of matter which has the highly energized, right, energized and more excited particles is known as plasma state, right? So the, right, the state of matter which has highly energized and more excited particles is known as plasma state, and these particles are in the form of ionized gas, right? तो remember ये सीधा सीधा जो है MCQs में, right, this question have been asked in various examination, right? Also this has been asked in the UPSC, right? So simply exams में पूछा जाएगा आपसे, right, कि the state of matter which has highly energized and more excited particles is known as plasma, right? And the particles, or we can say that the particles of plasma state are in the form of ionized gas, right? Plasma is not the normal state of matter at the earth, but in the universe, right, but in the universe the matter is found in maximum, right, maximum in the plasma state. So we can say that this plasma state is the most common state of matter in the universe, because the stars, right, the stars are having plasma state, right? At earth this is found in certain devices, for an example fluorescent bulbs and as well as tubes. So fluorescent tubes and neon bulbs contain plasma state of matter, right? So ये exams में सीधा examples में पूछा जाएगा, right? So fluorescent tubes and neon bulbs contain plasma state of matter. Neon gas is used in neon bulb and helium or mercury vapor is used in fluorescent tube, right? So neon gas is used in neon bulb, whereas the helium or mercury vapor is used in fluorescent tube, right? When electric current is passed, right, then the particles of neon gas as well as mercury or helium gas are ionized, right? And these gases are converted, right, converted into a bright plasma, right, bright plasma, and this bright plasma is the fourth state of matter, right? Or we can say that, so ये किस में पाई जाती है? फ्लोरोसेंट ट्यूब्स में और नियॉन बल्ब्स में, और ये कब प्रोड्यूस होती है? when electric current is passed in neon bulb as well as the fluorescent tube. Also in natural condition, right, this plasma state is found in the sun and other stars, right? Fourth is Bose-Einstein condensate state, right? So the a gas with a density as low as 1 millionth of the density of normal gas is cooled to a very, right, is cooled to a very low temperature and attains a Bose-Einstein condensate, right, Bose-Einstein कंडेंसेट स्टेट, राइट। और जो बोस आइंस्टाइन कंडेंसेट स्टेट है ये भी एक क्या है, स्पेशल कंडीशंस में ही ये जो है ये स्टेट पाई जाती है। और ये जो बोस आइंस्टाइन कंडेंसेट स्टेट है ये कब अकर होती है, राइट। सो उसके लिए कंडीशन है अ गैस with a density as low as 1 millionth of the density of normal gas is cooled to very low temperature and then attains a Bose-Einstein condensate state, right? Actually the BEC, here B stand for the bones, right? So in 1920 Indian scientist Satyendra Nath Bose, so in 1920 Satyendra Nath Bose did the same calculation, right? Satyendra Nath Bose propounded the fifth state of the matter. Later on the basis of these calculations, or we can say that later on the basis of the calculation which were presented by Satyendra Nath Bose, Einstein predicted a new state of matter which was known as Bose-Einstein condensate, right? Because इसका जो आइडिया था वो किसने दिया था, सत्येंद्र नाथ बोस ने, और इस कैलकुलेशंस को जो है और भी फर्दर स्टडी किया था आइंस्टीन ने। देयरफॉर द फिफ्थ स्टेट ऑफ मैटर इज नोन एज बोस-आइंस्टाइन कंडेंसेट स्टेट, राइट। और अभी भी इस पर जो है रिसर्च जो है जारी है। इन 2001 एरिक ए कॉर्नेल, राइट, वोल्फगैंग कैटरेल, right, and Carl E. Weinman, right, Carl E. Weinman were awarded the Nobel Prize in the physics for achieving the Bose-Einstein condensate state, right, and the research is also going on in this field, right. So in this way we have studied the states of matter or the physical classification of matter. Now let's study the chemical classification of matter, right. For this we would understand at first, right, what is matter. So I have told you that what is matter. See what is matter. So everything in this universe except energy is known as matter, or we can say that everything in the universe which has definite shape, which has definite volume, right, which exert pressure, whose state can be changed, right, through energy, and whose existence can be realized by the sense organs is known as matter, right. And on the basis of chemical properties, this matter is divided into two. The first is mixture, then pure substance, right. As the name states, this is pure substance and this is mixture, right. So what is pure substance? See, the form of matter, right, the form of matter which has same type of particle is known as pure substance, right. Simply same type of particles, right. So simply we can say that the matter which has same type of particles is known as pure substance. Now pure substance is further divided into two. The first is element and second is component. See, what is element? Element is the form of pure substance which cannot be split in, right, two particle, right, in two forms, right. For an example, here hydrogen, right, this is hydrogen, this is helium, this is iron, right. So can you split the atom of hydrogen or hydrogen into particle? No, right. But the compound of water, or we can say that water may be split into hydrogen as well as oxygen, right, because it has two type of particle. The first is particle of hydrogen and particle of oxygen, right? So here, right, this can be spilted, right? So what is pure substance? The matter. The matter which has same type of particle is known as pure substance, where the form of pure substance which cannot be spilt in, which cannot be spilted further, right? Further is known as element, right? And what is compound, right? So compound is the, see, when two or more than two elements are, right, included or mixed in proper ratio, then this is known as compound, right? फिर there are two types of compound. First is organic compound, then inorganic compound, and there are three types of element: metal, non-metal, and metalloid. So in this lecture we have to complete this portion. In the upcoming lecture we will study mixture, right, and we will study the homogeneous mixture as well as heterogeneous mixture, right? So pay attention here. Now we will study pure substance, then element, then compound, right? Everything would be studied, and this would be asked in the examination, right, as a MCQ. So the first is pure substance. So if all the particles, see, if all the particles present in a matter are of same chemical nature, right, then the matter is known as pure substance. Or in other words, we can say that if a matter has same type of particles, then this matter is known as pure substance. Or we can say that if all the particles present in a matter are of same chemical nature, then matter is known as pure substance. Pure substance is made up of only one type of particles, right? And pure substance can be classified into element as well as compound, right? So now let's study what is element and what is compound, right? The first is element. What is element? See, an element is a substance which cannot be split up, right, into two or simpler substances by the means of chemical method of applying heat, light or electric energy, right? तो जो एलिमेंट है वो प्योर सब्सटेंस का वह फॉर्म होता है जिसको हम फर्दर स्पिल्ट नहीं कर सकते हैं, right? So simply we can say that an element is a substance which cannot be split up in two or simpler substances by the means of chemical methods of applying heat, light and electric energy, right? For an example, oxygen, nitrogen, silver and copper, right? Now element can be further divided in metal, non-metal and metalloid, right? The first, metals. What are metals? See, metals are those elements which exhibit all or some of the following properties, और ये सभी physical properties होती हैं. So simply we can say that element which is shiny, right? Element which is good conductor of heat as well as electricity, उसको ही क्या कहा जाता है? Metals कहा जाता है, right? तो metals have the following property, और ये आपको एग्जाम के पर्पज से जो है याद रखना है, right? So what are the metals? Metals are those elements which exhibit all or some of the following properties. The first is metals are shiny. When metals are kept in the sunlight, right, metals shine, right? So metals are shiny. Second, metals are good conductor of heat as well as electricity. Third is metals are ductile, which means stretchable in the form of wire, right? When you apply a force and you will stretch a stone, right, it will split in two or three parts, right? But the matter is, right, when we stretch a matter, तो वो एक जो है thin wire में, right, क्या हो जाता है? Convert हो जाता है, उसको ही कहते हैं ductile. So metals are ductile, that is stretchable in the form of a thin wire. Metals are malleable. What means, right? If you will hit a glass, right, it would be broken into 1,000 pieces. But when you will hit metal, तो वो जो है छोटे छोटे पीस में ब्रेक डाउन नहीं होगा उसका, right? Which means, right, metals are malleable, which means metals are beaten and molded into fine sheets, right? And metals are resonant, that is they produce the metallic sound. For an example, gold, silver, iron, copper, potassium, mercury, right, as well as other metals. Here you need to keep in your mind that mercury is the metal, right? Mercury is the metal, right, which is exception. Why? Because जो गोल्ड है, सिल्वर है, आयरन है, कॉपर है, पोटेशियम है, ये सॉलिड स्टेट में पाई जाती हैं. कौन सी स्टेट में पाई जाती हैं? सॉलिड स्टेट में पाई जाती हैं, राइट? सो maximum metals are found in the solid state, but mercury is the metal which is found at a liquid state at room temperature. So metal being a, right, mercury being a metal found is found at a liquid at a room temperature, right? Now non-metals, see, non-metals are those elements which usually exhibit some or any of the following properties, yeah, all of the properties, right? So non-metals are those elements which usually exhibit some or all of the following properties. The first is metals are of different colors, right? Metals are of different colors, and जो जितने भी हमने क्वालिटीज यहाँ पर पढ़ी थी, अगर ये कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स किसी एलिमेंट में नहीं है तो वो क्या कहलाएगा? नॉन मेटल कहलाएगा, राइट? सो मेटल्स आर शाइनी, राइट? सो हम कह सकते हैं कि नॉन मेटल्स, राइट, नॉन मेटल्स डू नॉट हैव मेटेलिक साइन, राइट? सो नॉन मेटल्स, clear, non-metals do not have metallic sign, and non-metals are of different color. Second, metals are good conductor of heat and electricity, whereas non-metals are the bad conductors of heat and electricity, right? And third thing is that non-metals are not bright, or we can say that shiny, right? Non-metals are not ductile, non-metals are not malleable, and non-metals are non-resonant, right? But there is an exception here, which is iodine. Iodine is a non-metal, but it is a shiny non-metal, right? It has sign, right? So iodine is exception because non-metals do not have metallic sign, right, when brought to the sunlight, but iodine is the exception because इसके पास में क्या होती है? ये sign भी होती है, as well as iodine is found at a solid state. Examples of non-metals are hydrogen, oxygen, iodine, carbon, right, bromine and chlorine. Here, second thing you have to remember, bromine, right? Bromine is the non-metal which is found at a liquid state, right? Always remember, if question is asked, right, which metal, remember, which metal is found at a liquid state, right? Then your answer would be mercury, right? Mercury is the metal which is found at liquid state in room temperature, and bromine is the non-metal which is found at the room temperature, right? Now metallite, right? Metallite are those elements, right? So metallites are those elements which show properties between metals and non-metals, or we can say that metallites are those elements which are, right, which are at normal conditions behave like non-metals, but if impurities are added or temperature is increased, then these metalloids behave like a metals, right? So Those elements which have both the characteristics of metals as well as non-metals are known as metalloids, right? And metalloids at normal conditions, right? Metalloids at normal condition behave like non-metal, right? Which means that these non-metals are the bad conductors of electricity and heat. But when either impurity, right, जिसको doping कहा जाता है, right, but when impurity is added and temperature is increased, then these non-metals, right, then these metalloids behave like a metal, are known as metalloids. For an example, boron, silicon, germanium. And because of these properties, these are, or we can say that metalloids are used in semiconductor devices or electronic devices, right? Now, in this way, we have studied element, metal, non-metal, and metalloid, right? Now we will study the compound. What is compound? See, a matter that is made up of two or more elements chemically combined in a fixed proportion is known as a compound. Or we can say that when two or more elements chemically combined in a fixed portion, right, proportion is known as compound. For an example, H2O. अब H2O का जब केमिकल कॉम्बिनेशन होता है तो उसमें इनका रेशियो सेम होता है, विच मीन्स दैट H3O तो ये वाटर नहीं होगा, H1O या H4O ये भी वाटर नहीं होगा. ऑलवेज जो है इनमें जो है ये फिक्स्ड प्रोपोर्शन में ही क्या होते हैं, जो है कंपाउंड बनते हैं, राइट. सो सिंपली वी कैन से दैट, right, simply we can say that when two or more elements chemically combined in a fixed proportion known as compound, or a matter that is made up of two or more elements chemically combined in a fixed proportion is known as a compound, right. Now I would like to tell you here the difference between mixture और compound. जो मिक्सचर है उसमें जो कॉम्बिनेशन होता है वो फिक्स्ड नहीं होता है, राइट. सो अ मैटर दैट इज मेड अप ऑफ टू और मोर एलिमेंट्स केमिकली कंबाइंड इन अ फिक्स्ड प्रोपोर्शन इज नोन एज कंपाउंड. और जिसमें फिक्स्ड प्रोपोर्शन नहीं होता है वो क्या होता है, मिक्सचर होता है. सेकेंड, एलिमेंट्स रिएक्ट टू फॉर्म अ न्यू कंपाउंड. फॉर एग्जाम्पल यहाँ पर हाइड्रोजन और ऑक्सीजन, जब इन दोनों का कॉम्बिनेशन होता है तो उससे क्या बनता है, वाटर बनता है. और जो वाटर है उसके कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हाइड्रोजन और ऑक्सीजन से टोटली क्या होते हैं, डिफरेंट होते हैं. विच मीन्स जब कंपाउंड फॉर्म होता है तो एक न्यू सबस्टेंस क्या होता है, फॉर्म होता है. सो एलिमेंट्स रिएक्ट टू फॉर्म अ न्यू सबस्टेंस दैट इज नोन एज कंपाउंड. द कंपोजिशन ऑफ कंपाउंड इज स्टेबल, उसको चेंज नहीं किया जा सकता है. इन अ कंपाउंड द डिफरेंट प्रॉपर्टीज ऑफ इट्स कंपोनेंट्स. फॉर एन एग्जांपल द प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ हाइड्रोजन और द प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ ऑक्सीजन इज डिस्ट्रॉयड एंड a substance of completely different properties is formed. तो यहाँ पर जब हाइड्रोजन और ऑक्सीजन जो है एक फिक्स्ड प्रोपोर्शन में कंबाइन होकर क्या बनाएंगे, वाटर बनाएंगे. तो इसमें हाइड्रोजन और ऑक्सीजन के जो कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं वो क्या हो जाएंगे, लॉस्ट हो जाएंगे. वहीं जो वाटर है उसकी जो प्रॉपर्टीज हैं वो डिफरेंट होंगी, किससे, हाइड्रोजन से और ऑक्सीजन से. द कंपोनेंट्स कैन बी सेपरेटेड ओनली बाय केमिकल एंड इलेक्ट्रोकेमिकल रिएक्शन, right. Formation of compound is also the example of chemical change, right. So whenever there is a chemical change then compound is formed, right. What are the different examples of compound, right. For an example, water, right. Water is formed by chemical combination of elements like hydrogen and oxygen in fixed proportion, and in this proportion hydrogen has, right, hydrogen has 2 and oxygen has 1, right. Along with this hydrogen, carbon dioxide, CO2, ammonia, etc. are compound. Right? Now compounds are also of two fold. The first is organic and second is inorganic. The first is organic compound. See, compound whose main constituent is carbon or carbon hydrogen is bonded to hydrogen is known as organic compound. So simply compounds whose main constituent right, या जिसका मुख्य घटक जो है वो क्या होता है, कार्बन होता है. So compounds whose main constituent is carbon and carbon is bonded to hydrogen is known as organic compound. For an example, carbohydrate, protein, oil, wax, etc. Now inorganic compound, right? So those compounds in which carbon is not the main constituent, right? Also carbon hydrogen bond is not found or absent, right? So those compounds, right, those compounds in which carbon is not the main component or carbon is not the main constituent, right, and carbon hydrogen bond is also absent, then these compounds are known as inorganic compounds. Right? These compounds are obtained from the inorganic sources like rocks, right, minerals, etc. For an example, washing soda and salts. Right? So washing soda and salts are the inorganic compound. Right? Now let's study the difference between element and compound. We have studied element as well as we have studied compound, and if you have studied it properly, then definitely, right, you would come to know what is the difference between element and compound. Right? At first, what is the definition of element and what is the definition of compound? See, element is the, right, an element, right? An element is the form of pure substance which cannot be split up in two substances, right? Which means that ये one type of atom से ही मिलकर बना हुआ होता है. So an atom is the form of pure substances which cannot be split up in two types of substances is known as element. But, right, compound is a matter which is formed after the compound is a matter which is formed after the fixed combination of more than two elements is known as compound. Right? Second, the properties of elements are due to their smallest particle atom. Right? तो जैसे ये क्या हो जाएगा, हाइड्रोजन. अब हाइड्रोजन की जो केमिकल प्रॉपर्टी होंगी वो इस हाइड्रोजन जो एलिमेंट है इसका स्मॉलेस्ट पार्टिकल क्या होगा, यहाँ पर इसका स्मॉलेस्ट पार्टिकल होगा एटम. तो ये एटम की वजह से होंगे. वेयर एज द प्रॉपर्टीज ऑफ कंपाउंड आर ड्यू टू देयर स्मॉलेस्ट पार्टिकल जो कि क्या होगा, मॉलिक्यूल होगा. राइट? जैसे ये वाटर है तो इसमें ये वाटर के कितने मॉलिक्यूल हैं, 2 हैं. मैंने यहाँ पर लिख दिए क्या, 10 H2O. बट कभी भी अगर आप देखेंगे तो इसका स्मॉलेस्ट पार्टिकल होगा तो वो कितना होगा, H2O. Right? Elements do not decompose into smaller substances by physical or chemical reaction, but compound can be broken down into simpler substances by physical or chemical action. For an example, H2O, right? H2O को break किया जा सकता है हाइड्रोजन और ऑक्सीजन में. The total number of element is 118. So total number of element कितने हैं, 118 है. But there are huge amount of compounds, right? The examples of element are hydrogen, H, nitrogen, N, right, carbon, C, phosphorus, right, etc. The examples of compound are water, H2O, right, sodium chloride, NaCl, copper sulfate, etc., etc. Right? So in this way we have studied. What is matter, then what is element, and what is compound. In the upcoming lecture we will study what is mixture as well as some important principles regarding chemistry. Right? So we will meet in next lecture. Till then, thank you.